Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tropic Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Tuesday, September 2nd. First trading day of the month in the books, and very similar to how we started the month of August. Risk disclaimer in front of you: everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. Please read the full risk disclaimer there. So let me go through the raw numbers first, then clearly have some charts to go over because we are in the month of September, which means we have new value areas for the month, and which again are based on all of last month's activity, which is gonna give us some good support resistance levels to watch and pay attention to, and plus, kind of gives us a roadmap for what to kind of look at going forward. So, first of all, what did you hear about this morning? That was as soon as the first thing that I heard this morning was global bond yields are higher, and that caused kind of we'll call it a ruckus in the markets this morning. I think it's one of those things where, as I had said in my midday Substack on Friday, that I have to remember what day, considering we had the holiday yesterday. But I had said that the markets were kind of priced to perfection a bit. I think everybody at this point talking about weaker seasonality in September, something that you heard last month too. We heard about weaker seasonality in August, which didn't really uh live up to expectations. But coming into this month, I think that's probably one of the most talked about things, is that at this point the market's been on a big run, and we know that September is the weakest seasonal month. Now, I will say this: I don't know um, how out of the ordinary. I heard CNBC talk about this like 5 times today. So, you have to be careful of some of these things. When everybody's talking about the same damn thing, sometimes it doesn't work. So, if when nobody's talking about something, that's when the market gets surprised, and that's when the market may have, a situation when the expectations are low, whatever it is, for whatever the event is. But um, I think the fact that everybody's talking about it, it may not work out the same way. Now, we did start down. I think the VIX was up like 17% at one point today. Remember those VIX calls that we saw on the tape? I thought were a pretty nice signal. I bought those on Friday, and I was able to take some profits in that. I'm still leaving that trade on. I did not take that whole trade off, because I think that's a good way to kind of have a bit of a hedge for not only September but October, as those calls expire in October. So the VIX really came in from the highs. It still finished at 17, which is higher than where we were on Friday. But I think at one point hit around like 1950 today in the VIX. So much higher where it was intraday. Bonds, yes, they were down today, but that's the thing. When I heard a lot about how much yields were going higher this morning, and I look in TLT, only down 7/10 of a percentage point. Now you have to factor in with TLT that it went ex div today, so there was a dividend. So when you knock that dividend out, you get that that TL2 is only down 7/10 of a percentage point. So yeah, yields going higher, but like that's not an out of the ordinary move. That's an average move. So just wanted to kind of mention that, because that's what I heard this morning, and I think it was just the fact that, hey, we're starting a new month and people are entering a little bit cautious into this month, and I don't blame any of that. That makes sense to me, considering, again, I already said this once, but the run that we've had. And I know a lot of people are saying kind of the same thing. Um, the dollar was up 6/10 of a percentage point. Yes, so the VIX did finish up six. Sorry, I'm just going off my themes up here. The dip was bought today. Look at what happened in the microcaps today, up 1.3% for the open. So again, we're seeing this kind of carried through. Remember, IWM and IWC both outperformed last month, and it looks like they're carrying that outperformance forward a bit. Gold had a huge day. Bitcoin did very well today too, after really underperforming last month. I think Bitcoin was down 7% last month. I'm going from memory, and I did tweet out all of those numbers on Twitter, I think on Saturday. The gold miners did very well. Gold miners. Biotech had a huge day today too. That stood out to me, up 3.4%. What came back from the open the most? Uranium stocks, blockchain stocks, solar stocks still finished down decently on the day, but nice comeback from where they opened this morning. Semis didn't come back all the way. A little bit of issues there with semis and um, with hearing about Nvidia and a BABA chip that we heard about towards the end of last week. We've heard that stuff before, but I think everybody trying to play catch up to Nvidia at this point, and transport's also lagged. So let's go through some charts. I'm going to bring up first the chart. We'll start, of course, with the chart of SPY. As I mentioned, that's two things. I would say, number one, we've got a new value area for the month of September. I'm going to talk about that. But also look at what happened at the end of July. I was joking around with this. I put a tweet out earlier that, let's see if I can bring this up for you. Um, I'll stop the screen 1 second here. That's okay. I don't need to show it. But what I was getting, I was making a joke saying this looks identical to the now of course nothing is perfectly identical, but yes, it's very similar to what we did on towards the end of July and the first trading day of August. And then look at what we did thereafter. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to play out the same way, but the whole point I think is don't get too excited. I think there's so many people out there that are looking to call the top in the market and looking to say like, aha, I told you so, that type of thing. Like I don't think that this is that much to be worried about. I think that this is supposed to happen at this point. Remember, every year there's supposed to be about 2 to 3 corrections. And the scale of the pullbacks or corrections is different each year, but we usually do get a couple situations. Now we know that we got one obviously earlier in the year, and everyone thereafter has been. What do we know about every dip that we've had since we made the lows in April? Every dip has been pretty shallow. Right? We had one dip in here, return to the 20-day moving average, a little bit of digestion here, and then we had a real nice move here in the middle of June. We started down, we broke the 20-day moving average. That hey, I was worried. To say that I wasn't worried about that happening in the very first day of the month of August, I was. But I think that you just kind of have to go through and look at some of the sectors, look at some of the individual names, and it just to me seems like there is still a thirst out there to be buying the dip. Like another thing that I tweeted out this morning, that CTAs have basically loaded the boat on exposure. Right, they're at like their highest that they are in terms of getting back into equities. Yeah, that's troublesome. And again, I'm not saying that we go right back up like this. I think that we go back and forth this month, and I think that there's definitely some adjustments to make, right? And by the way, like if you're interested in hearing more about that, I did a whole video about making adjustments and about kind of what's going on in the market, and I did that in the weekend review video. I also recapped performance for the month of August as well as my P&L and came away with some best practices. So if you want that video, plus like our watch list and all of that, make sure that we're still running a special. That this is the last day to get the special. 2 months for the you get 2 months for the price of one, and not only do you get the trading room, but you also get the MarketWebs indicator, which, as I said, we'll be going through more detail. And I'll do a little bit of that shortly just in this video. But yes, we're starting the month inside value, very similar to what we did in August. And it's a little bit deeper. We are below the 20-day moving average. Support that I'm watching here is about 1% down, which is 633.78, and also that 50-day moving average. Now, I'm going to just show you something here in terms of what the Qs look like because they are a bit weaker. They're all the way back down to almost where we started the month last month. Remember, this did not show relative strength the last couple weeks. of August. So this did come in and test the 50-day moving average today, which is a big thing because not only that we really haven't seen that since April. So this did come down and test the 50-day moving average, and for now it held. It also broke through instead of being inside the value area for the month, but it did regain it. So the level to watch here is 564.25. In my midday note, when we were kind of hanging around here, I said, be careful of this VPOC down here. That's 2% lower. Now we do have what looks to be in a few of these different tech charts, what looks to be a head and shoulders. And the way I drew my neckline for this is a little bit slanted because the head and shoulders patterns, they're not perfect. A lot of times we see things that look like a head and shoulders and that don't actually end up being a head and shoulders. But for now, this is below the neckline. And I would watch tomorrow and basically this week what we do right at this bottom of value area. Again, that's 564.25 is a level there. So that's going to be a big level to watch, to pay attention to. But let's take a look at what small caps look like. A different looking picture. By the way, they look like very different than SPY and Qs all year long. For a while, they were showing weakness. Now they're showing some strength. Notice that they open up above the September value area, and they just kind of came in and tested here and held. So that's 231.43. I also want to show you this IWC, which is microcaps too, which again is back above the value area for the month. This dipped in slightly, but by the way, look at the volume today. That's kind of interesting. A lot of volume in IWC today, microcap. By chance, maybe somebody's interested in this. I'll go through and see if there was any big blocks in this after hours. But interesting. All right, then we have some news. Speaking of what could help the Qs here, look at what Google's doing here after hours. There's some news on Google that it doesn't look like they're being asked to separate Chrome and a sealed envelope decision. Makes me think of, I'm showing my age here, but makes me think of Johnny Carson back in the day when he used to do the whole envelope s- uh, skit that he used to do. But anyway, I will move on from that. But very nice move. That is helping the Qs after hours. I also see a nice move by Apple as well, making a move above 237. So that should help the Qs. It'll be interesting to see if something is down in sympathy to kind of neutralize the index effects. But that's a nice move. We also had Zscaler report after the close. Now they're off the highs, but let's see if they can kind of remain above. Two VPOCs taken out and hanging around those VPOCs. Watch that 285 level in Zscaler. So let me go through and talk about on days like this when the whole market's down a bit and opens up gaps down. What I tend to really look for is what names are holding up better than other names. Take a look at Roblox. Right, this is a name that has been in a big uptrend, got ahead of itself on earnings, came back down. But look at the performance today; it was up 3% today. And I'm going to stick with names that are in R. I think this Rocket Labs looks pretty good too. This is a name that I traded in the beginning of last week. I wasn't being greedy, and I took profits right around $50. I think right short of $50, but it's still hanging above the 5-period moving average. I think that looks pretty good. Palantir threw me for a loop today. Look at this comeback. Now it's kind of clinging at this point, but for now at least it's hanging above the 50-day moving average. I made a comparison last week that I was worried that Palantir would do an Oracle. And I think I went over this in Friday's video, but it's doing a bit better here. It is holding on. Again, I don't know if it's going to continue to hang in there, but for now it closed above the 50-day moving average. That's that big blue line here. So I think pretty darn good. Just to keep going with some of the other tech names that have been strong. Arista Networks came back again, holding on. 131.88 is your level to watch there. I would also watch what happens around this 5 and the 20-day moving average. CLS, which was kind of one of the mistakes that I made this morning, is, hey, I had a stop price in this. It hit the stop price this morning, and I got out of it. But it's also still hanging on at this point. TEM caught my eye today. Very nice move here. a little bit. And again, don't know if this is going to be kind of setting up as a Head and Shoulders, but for now, this looks very strong. The level that I would watch for tomorrow off the 1 hour chart, and just in case it back checks in here, but watch the 76.50 level. Nice break here. Notice the first attempt today, couldn't get through it. Came back in a little bit and then moved back above here. So that's a nice level to watch for today at 76.50. Also, Corning, which has been showing all kinds of strength recently in call buying, very nice move there. Couple other smaller names. This IREN, unbelievable. Congrats if you're long it. I am not, but put in almost a 10% day after a big gap up. Opened a little bit lower, and then look at that's a really nice candle for this. Also, another name that's in like energy storage, low price stock, under $10 stock, but EOSE also saw some call buying. A name that I got long today too, and I sent out a whole note on this name, CGNX. A lot of calls that went up for November, roughly 17,000 calls. Now, this is still in value for the month, and but I've been watching this name for a while. I did not catch it in here. I kind of watched it a couple times, but hey, this name is still has some levels to retrace. Specifically, I'm looking for a move up to 49. Now, before it gets 49, it's got to break out of its value area for the month. That level is going to be 44.91 to pay attention to for it to go over. But that's a nice looking candle at the 20-day moving average, right? Hopefully, that's just the beginning of the move because, again, like I said, it still has some work to do. App11, another name. This was the first name that I added to this morning. I really liked the strength that I saw last week in App11, and I bought this one. I had a nice purchase price in this one this morning, which I think was right around 457, and I didn't wait long for that. So nice recovery. That was right around like the lows of the day today. So nice move, and for now, closed above the value area uh, for the new month. What else do I have? The solar names. This caught my eye over the weekend. I was, I do a lot of scanning on the weekend, but I read a note that China is spending a lot more on solar than the U.S. is. Take a look at this weekly chart in DQ, which is a name that had earnings last week. Didn't make that much of a move, but again, this is another one of those names that's kind of been basing for a little bit and trying to break out of the base, right? So notice where this stock was. And again, I'm not doing this to reference like that the stock is going to go back there, but it was once $120 stock. This is now, sitting just above the value area. Again, it's one of those things that very easy to kind of plan your trade here. My trade is as long as it stays above this gray box, which is the value area for this year, it's a breakout trade for right now. So that level is 24.35. I was able to, I do view China names as higher risk, and I was able to take a quick target in this from where I put the trade on this morning. But again, I'm still coming around on the solar group. I think First Solar is kind of holding in there. I looked at this stock last week. I think with these two candles, it slipped here. And again, just like a couple of the other charts that we mentioned, like with the 50-day moving average, just got above the 20-day moving average. All right. So again, I'm showing a lot of charts here. One of the things that I would keep in mind, and I talked about in the beginning of this video, that making adjustments in September, right? Doing things that are a little bit different. Right? I think that I know everybody's saying it about the weaker seasonality, but I still believe that that could be the case for this month, just as I did for August, by the way. So, but I think making adjustments is important, meaning like how many trades you have on, right? What the size of your trades are, leaving dry powder so that if there are dips, considering that these dips are getting bought, right? Sometimes the dips are better opportunities than when we start up on the day. Right. In fact, those are the days that I want to be selling into when we gap up, right? Those have not been good days to be adding risk, right? And have been troublesome for traders, right? But when we're opening up down on the day, right, there is that buy the dip mentality that is still going on right now. And again, none of us have a crystal ball, but for now, that's the case. What is that telling us, by the way? That when we see these red opens, that they're being bought. to me, it still means that there's some money on the side, that there's money on the sidelines because people are waiting for these things to get involved in rather than chasing names that are higher. So I'll leave it there. I think a very nice trading day, and hope you had a nice start to the month. I would say take advantage of the special. It's the last day that we'll be running it. The link there is on the bottom of the screen, and you could also find that on my Twitter page. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.